Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on porch time today. We're actually sitting on the back of the deck. It's a breezy day, it's cool, it's an enjoyable day. We've had some very nice weather. We're really appreciative to the Lord for that. We waited so long for the heat and it just seemed like it would never end, but now we have the nice cool days and the wind is blowing. So I hope that maybe the wind's not too bad in the mic because I didn't put the lapel mic on this time. Just didn't do it. Okay, with that being said, today's video, I have been asked over and over and over to do this. So I've been reluctant, but I'm going to do it. And the title of the video is, It Is What It Is. That's a phrase that I have used most of my life, and I've hardly ever heard it used until here recently on some other YouTube channels, and I won't call the names of them. I've been hearing it used quite frequently, and I was like, wow, I was thinking that was a term that you just only heard down south here, or people like me said, because it's like people take us as we don't really care because we go, well, it just is what it is, you know, and we just walk off, you know. And so what really is being said when we say it is what it is? There are so many things in life that are beyond our control. And when those things happen, I've always made the phrase, well, it is what it is. It's an unchangeable circumstance that I have no control over. I've used that phrase quite often with business deals. I've talked to people before in doing business, and they'll say, well, can't you do this, or can't you just do that? It would really benefit me if you did, and I would always say, well, it is what it is, you know? And sometimes it come across as being a little bit cruel or a little bit harsh, but that was never the intention. It's the simple fact that it's the best I could do, and it is what it is. And a lot of people today in the world we live in, let me say this is we're fastly approaching a politically correct world, which I take no part in. There's one thing you'll learn about me. I'm probably the most unpolitically correct human being that you will ever come across, because I usually call a card face what it is. If it's an ace, I call it an ace. If it's a spade, I call it a spade. You know, if it's a heart, I'll call it a heart. But if it's a joker, I'm going to call it a joker. And I'm probably not going to choose politically correct words. I've actually been through some court cases, and I've actually used some language that actually had the whole court sit and go, really? Did you just say that? And I said, yes, I did. Because it is what it is. And thinking that it would probably end up costing me the court case, but actually I won. And I don't know why, I won because the evidence pointed that I was right. And it didn't really have anything to do with the language that I chose to use. But there's so many times in life that we try to hunt these words because we don't want to be offensive to someone, and we are trying to pacify someone else. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I grew up hard and rough, and very seldom did I ever have anybody try to sugarcoat anything in my life. And from that happening to me, I guess maybe I've developed an attitude that is not one that I might per se is politically correct. You know, I mean, if if I don't like something someone's doing, I usually tell them I don't like it, and I don't try to sugarcoat it. Because to me, it is what it is. And, you know, there's been instances in my families. We've had people who, in our family that's had miscarriages. I've had a loss of a spouse. Y'all have heard me talk about that. There's been, I lost a niece at 8 years old to a head-on collision. And, you know, and I'm like, God, why? What's up with this? You know what I mean? And I finally, there are no answers to some things. And when there are no answers, this side of heaven, then my friend, it is what it is. You can't change it. And I tell people, I'm not trying to be rude, get over it. You know, there's things that happen in our lives, and they'll cause us to become stagnant if we're not careful. And we'll get hung up on, like me. I'll use me for an example because I know me, and I'm probably the best example I know of for things. You know, when I lost a spouse, I got hung up on some things. You know, there's 7 stages to grief there, and I know all this stuff. But yet, even me knowing about all this stuff and the trauma that I went through, I still got hung up in some of those stages. And having done counseling and going to a counselor that was a real good friend of mine, probably one of the best I knew, trying to get through those instances and those problems that I was dealing with, the anger and different things like that, and in my mind going, I know this is one of the stages, but why can't I move beyond it? And then having someone who's not even a counselor, just a nice young female friend of mine from way back, just look at me and just blunt and blatantly look at me and tell me, Danny, it's over. You're not married no more. It is what it is. Get over it. And it was like an epiphany happened. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. She's right. I actually am a single guy again. And for the first time in like a year and a half, reality began to set in. And I realized I needed to move on. Not because of disrespect for my spouse, but I'm still here. And God expects me to move forward. And I was still moping and groping about something that could never be again. And will that part of me always be there? Yes. That part of me is always going to be there. There's a part of me that's always going to love that lady. That cannot be taken away from me. Neither can it be filled. But at the same time, it's a point in my life that I come to that it is what it is. I can't undo it. I can't remake it. It is what it is, and I've got to move forward with my own life. And so many times, I just use that as an example. I know y'all have heard me talk about it because that's what I know. And I've actually talked to many people who's been through the same exact things and able to help them, but yet I could not help myself. And I know that may sound totally ridiculous, but sometimes in life, we can't help ourselves. I can talk to other people and be the greatest blessing to them in the world and help them to get through crisis situations, but I can't even help my own self many times. It takes somebody else stepping in, and that's where the scripture comes in. It says to bear one another's burdens, and that, my friend, the prayer of a righteous man availeth much, the scripture says. Sometimes we need other people praying for us. Sometimes we need other people that when we cry, they cry with us, and when we laugh, they laugh with us. You know, and when we go through things in life, we need other people to go through those same things in life with us so that we're able to to cope and to comprehend and to move forward in life. And I know that sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. Uh, I know in my own personal life, since I've faced so many things that I've faced, I've had to set boundaries in my life now. There's some places I can't go anymore. There's some things that I used to be able to do in counseling with people and talking with people that I no longer, I can no longer do that anymore because of things that's happened to me in my life and the fact that the post-traumatic stress disorder that I deal with on a semi-regular basis, I have to be careful because there's certain things, there's certain words that can be spoken that actually triggers some responses in me. There are some smells that will trigger responses in me because of this disorder that I suffer from now. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It's life. None of us are immune to this. And I know y'all are seeing my face. I'm trying to move my face because I see shadows coming all across my face here. I hope that's not too distracting during this because I'm really trying to be serious here. These are things that happen in our lives that are not unnatural, I guess is what I'm trying to say. These things are very natural, and I've actually heard people say, well, I've had things happen in my life and I have no response to some things. Well, no response is a response, and that's your way of dealing with it. It's not necessarily everybody's way. Some people will cry a lot when something happens. Some people get extremely angry when things happen. Some people will become extroverts, introverts. Some people will recede so bad that they don't even know how to get out of a hole that they're in. They don't want to be messed with. They want to be left alone. Some people will become loners. Some people need to be around lots of people. I mean, there's lots of ways of people have of dealing with things, and no one way is the right way. All of them are the right ways because it's how I deal with things. I mean, in a lot of the losses in my life, there for a while it caused me to, my family said I was a hermit. They called me a hermit because I basically lived in the woods and I hardly ever came out. And it was one of those things that it was my way of dealing with things. And did it make it wrong? No, it's not wrong. It's the simple fact that as long as you don't end up getting hung up there and you can't move forward. Because you see, none of us are immune to anything. The only difference, I used to use this phrase a lot in talking with people. The only difference between me or you and the fella sitting behind the bars in prison is probably the simple fact is he just got caught. We've all done things in our lives that would warrant us getting in trouble of some kind. And the only difference between us and them is the grace of God and the simple fact we just didn't get caught. Growing up as teenagers, I know me, I've done things I probably shouldn't have done. It's just been, it was a rough life lived in a lot of ways. And I can't change that, so you know what? It is what it is now. There's no sense in sitting back and looking at the past and saying, well, because of my past, I can't do any better. No, that's probably the furthest thing from the truth that you could ever say. Because your future belongs to you. What you do with your future is up to you. We all have 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, 30 to 31 days in a month except for February. And it's up to us. what we do with our lives. And we're going to come across those times where it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. And there's no sense in getting hung up on something that we have no control over. And the fact of this politically correct thing, I'll probably at some point are going to make a lot of people mad on a lot of my videos because I'm a matter-of-fact kind of guy. I like people to shoot straight to me, and I like to shoot straight back to someone. I don't like people sugarcoating something. I like to have it straightforward. I feel like that honesty is probably one of the better ways to deal with something. It usually may be rough up front, but in the long run, it's going to save a lot of heartache. And I believe that sometimes if we'll just accept the fact that it is what it is, and we move forward, and not try to be politically correct with our language a lot of times, just speak what's on our heart, and just let other people know how we feel. And guys, I don't actually know how much further I can go with this. Because it is what it is. And I know it sounds kind of humorous, but I'm so tired of this politically correct world that we live in, and having to, as the old expression goes, like in the martial arts, you like walking on rice paper because it's so thin. You have to be so careful. Or some people use the phrase, you're treading on thin ice when you do things, and I get all this. It's lots of times things are not said to hurt people. It's just that in today's world, we've become so soft that certain words offend us. And guys, that's immaturity. That's the only way I can say it. It's immaturity. The Apostle Paul said, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, but now that I'm a man, I speak like a man. That's paraphrasing it, but that's basically what he said. So there comes a point in life where we all have to grow up, and we all have to accept responsibility for our own actions. And in doing so, for every action, there's a reaction. And we have to accept that. There's consequences for every decision we make here upon this earth. And I think some of us, if we're not careful, our whole life is lived out of fear of not being able to accomplish what we want to accomplish, and as a result, we do nothing. Because we sit back and we just say, oh, well, I can't do anything. I'm kind of stuck where I'm at. It is what it is, and there could be nothing further from the truth. There are times when we use the phrase, it is what it is, and we can use it in a wrong way. Because to say that I'm stuck in a position and I can never get out of it, and to say it is what it is, that's saying and limiting God. Because God says you have not because you ask not. The only problem is, James says in the book of James, he says, but when you ask of this, that you might consume it upon your own lusts. So it's not God's fault. When we get where we're at, many times, it's our own fault. And we sit and we beg and we plead and we ask God for this and we ask God for that. God, why does it have to be this way? Why is that? Why can't I have this? Or why can't I do that? God is actually protecting us a lot of times because we're asking because we're doing it out of lust. And it's not the way He wants it to be. He loves us and He has our best interest in mind. God doesn't look at us and go, it is what it is. God looks at us with love and compassion. But there also comes a time when He looks at us And he says, you know what? I got to prune you. Just like these trees out here that I prune in the wintertime. It looks horrible. It looks like I'm doing lots of damage to these trees. But when springtime comes, they blossom forth and they're very productive. That's because sometimes we've got to have our feathers clipped to actually blossom. And I know that to some people that sounds hard, but I don't live in a politically correct world, and neither should you. Because sometimes in life, it is what it is. Just remember, God never looks at us and says, it is what it is, because God is God, and God can change anything. But we, as mortal humans, we cannot change some things. So for our life, in many instances, it is what it is. There are some things we can't change. We can't go back to the past and change things. We have to accept the decisions we've made. We have to accept the things that have happened in our life. And we have to look at it as it is what it is, and we have to move on. But if you're going to use that term, make sure you use it appropriately. Don't look at yourself, like I said a while ago, and say, well, I'm stuck where I'm at. There's nothing I can do, so I'm just giving up because it is what it is. No, that is the wrong way to use that phrase. Because at that point, you have begun to limit God. Only use that phrase when it's in an unchangeable circumstance, like the loss of someone, or a health issue that's happened that there's no way of correcting it. I had my gallbladder took out. It is what it is. I can't have it back. I have to accept. I got to change my diet. I've got to eat differently because I have no gallbladder. And I use the phrase, it is what it is. So guys, I'm not going to keep Force Time going a long time today because there's lots that's got to be done around here. We're running so short on time. I've been asked by many people to do this video, and I was going to do it as a humor video, but I was like, you know what? It's really a serious matter to deal with. It is what it is. Because so many people look at you and go, I hate for you to say that. Because they wear their feelings on their shirt sleeves. And I'm sorry. That's all I know how to say. At some point, I will probably offend somebody. And I'll apologize ahead of time because it is what it is. I doubt I'll ever be politically correct. I see no sense in it. But anyway, with that being said, I got to get out here and get busy, and I don't want to hold y'all up too long because I'm appreciative that you stop and take this time to share with me, and you listen to the talk. I pray that you can get something out of it. It can benefit you because it benefits me lots of times. Not to say that I'm always right, but there's some lessons in life I've learned that works for me, and if any way possible that you can glean something from it and benefit your life, then it's a blessing to me also. And I always try to throw in a little bit of something about the Lord because without Him, I would be nothing. And I thank Him every day for every breath He gives me. Because without Him, life would not exist for me. And I pray that in your daily walk that you'll look to Him for your guidance and for your direction in this world, and to help you find the path that best benefits you, so that you don't have to sit back and say, you know what, it is what it is. Thank you guys. From Deep South Homestead.